Michael Wolff, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here. You have written 4 books, I believe, about Donald Trump, this one being the latest, All or Nothing. And I just want to get, as somebody who has essentially been a biographer of Donald Trump multiple times over the course of his political career, what do you make of the fact that he managed to get back into office after all that happened in his first term?
Well, I'd say he is some sort of genius, or maybe we should say idiot savant.
You write about in All or Nothing, you talk about the fact that after he lost the election and, from the, 2021 on, he just actually continued to, in his mind, be the president. He just would not entertain the thought of losing, even though there's been reporting that he knew he lost, that he talked about being beaten by Joe Biden. So there's that duality of him pretending to be
Well,
president, still going on as if he's
I would
president.
somewhat disagree with that. I mean, if there were glimpses within him that he might have lost, they were really fleeting glimpses. I mean, and I have to say this, and having spent quite a number of hours talking with him, I think that he was absolutely a true believer. That is to say, he was delusional. And this, despite the fact that virtually everyone around him, his most trusted aides, his family, very clearly knew and accepted that he had lost. But he did not. And actually, then he managed to kind of push out all those other people and then surround him with people who were willing to say what he wanted to hear, which is that it was stolen from you, Mr. President. And then it became clear that anyone who wanted a relationship with him, and that includes all members of Congress and the Republican Party, if you wanted a relationship with him, you also had to say what he wanted to hear, which is that the election was stolen, Mr. President.
And it's gotten so bad that, in places like Oklahoma, they're thinking about adding that to the curriculum, teaching children that the election in 2020 was stolen. I've written one Trump book, right? But just my interviews with people, I've never had anybody tell me that, that he's brilliant other than at, real estate maybe, and he sunk his own, empire into the ground.
Yeah, I mean, we can go further. I mean, Trump is a moron. And I say this in as precise and literal a way as possible. I mean, what he does and has done for the entirety of his career is block information. He does not want to know. And one of the ways that he does this is he keeps talking all the time. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. It is really kind of spectacular. He just doesn't stop. And no one can get a word in edgewise. So no one can tell him anything. So he's purposely set out to build this world in which no new facts, no new information get into this world, except the information that he wants. And it's not even information that he wants, it's information that he himself comes to believe. So it's a kind of mind inside the mind of Donald Trump that I don't think few of us have ever encountered before.
Then how does he get so many people, I mean, millions of people, as well as an entire political party, to take the knee to his delusions?
Well, let's go back. That's why I say he's a kind of a genius or idiot savant. And let's remember that he was the star of a top-rated reality television show for 14 years. That's an extraordinary training ground, and it turns out to be an extraordinary training ground for a politician. He knows how to speak to the interests, even the subconscious interests of the audience. He knows how to hold the audience's attention. He knows what makes compelling drama. And the answer to that, and as in all reality shows, is conflict. You have to have conflict constantly. You will lose people's attention if you don't have conflict, if you don't manufacture conflict constantly. And that is what he has done since 2015, coming down the stairs at the escalator at Trump Tower. It's conflict after conflict after conflict, and the substance of the conflict doesn't matter, because the next conflict will make the prior conflict functionally irrelevant. It's just constantly new conflict. So that turns out to be the method, the secret.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, by the way, I think that hits on my theory that the media's only true biases are change and conflict. They're biased toward those two things. But let's talk about that in the sense of what he's doing now. You're seeing the military, the Trump regime, essentially occupy Los Angeles. Kristi Noem said, we're staying until there is essentially regime change, until the quote unquote socialists who are leading Los Angeles and California are removed. He's using the military in ways no president has done. Do you believe that Donald Trump is a fascist?
Well, let me go back, and I can maybe provide some context here. As soon as he got into the White House in 2017, he started to talk about my troops, my military, and then he started to complain that the military cost so much, but we got so little use out of it. Why didn't we use it for more things? So here's a man. You, totally without any appreciation of where the military fits in a democracy, of the tension between the military and the civilian authority, between force and process. I mean, he knows nothing about that, has thought nothing about this. So all he sees is a very expensive several million people who are not being used on a daily basis. So it suddenly became, okay, what can we do? And he was dissuaded on many occasions during the first administration from actually using the military in that way. This time around, there are fewer people to dissuade him. And this seemed like this seemed made for the reality television show. I don't like California. Let's send in the troops. I don't like Gavin Newsom. He'll be a good enemy to have. And also, the headlines last week were all about Elon Musk and the Epstein bomb, and let's change those headlines. How do we do that? Well, let's invade California. But having said that, Donald Trump, what he does, the actions he takes, exist in the moment, and then change in the next moment when there are new actions. So to kind of characterize him as a fascist, if you will, or as an authoritarian, is not is probably off target, because whatever he does in which you might say, oh, these are authoritarian things, then he's going to do something else, and we're going to forget about this. LA, remember when the troops went to LA? We will be saying several weeks from now, as now we almost say, oh, remember that dust up with Elon Musk. So in other words, we are in very, very new territory. And one of the problems for the media is that they don't know how to describe it. They don't know how to characterize it. They don't functionally know what they're talking about when they talk about Donald Trump.
I cannot disagree. I mean, and to go to the Elon thing for a moment, I never bought into it being real. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think the relationship was ever real. It's all transactional. Well, what do you make of this supposed fight between them? They have the same interest. They both want to, hurt the poor and cut Elon's taxes.
Well, I don't actually think that's quite right. I think that Elon thought. I mean, Elon's interest has a very, very, very precise interest in this context. He believes that that if you bring technology to government, you can streamline management. So, and that's what he set out to prove. He is he's sort of messianic and sort of, very, well, he is very focused on what he believes he can accomplish. And remember, he has accomplished many, many things. So he had a discussion with Donald Trump. Trump wasn't listening to him, and Elon barely got a few words in, but he came away thinking, as many people do, oh, okay, he agrees with me. And on top of that, he's a moron. So I'm going to be able to come into the White House, and I'm going to be able to be the smart guy. And that's why Elon spent $250 million, and that's why he came into the White House. That's what he thought would happen once in the White House. Now, the truth is that Trump is a moron, and he does, you would, by any measure, need other people. But because he doesn't listen, because he doesn't care, because it is functionally, singularly about him, even if you're as focused and as smart as Elon, you're not going to get through, and you are going to become, to say the very least, frustrated and angry, and uncomprehending. And I think that's what happened to Elon, and then Trump gets resentful because, or he gets, it's not even resentful. It's just a level of irritation that people are trying to tell him things he doesn't want to know. So therefore, the relationship breaks down. And I should add that the relationship with everyone and Donald Trump breaks down, that all of the people who came into the first White House left in disgrace or humiliation or were indicted. 100%. It always ends in tears.
Yeah. And but he did say some things that were intriguing. The Epstein files, you've interviewed Jeffrey Epstein, did some extensive interviews with him for Fire and Fury. He declared himself to be Donald Trump's best friend. Do you believe Donald Trump is in the Epstein files?
Well,
An
I don't.
extensive way that would harm him?
I think the Epstein files is a metaphor. But that's Donald Trump is in Jeffrey Epstein's life in a substantial way, probably more than any other singular person. They were joined at the hip. They were BFFs for the better part of a decade. They hunted women together. Hunt being the right word. They shared a girlfriend for a period. Epstein helped Trump cheat on his taxes. I mean, this was a very, very close relationship. Now, anyone else's close relationship of any kind with Jeffrey Epstein has tainted them, sometimes mortally tainted them. But somehow Donald Trump has gotten away with this. And around him, the feeling, the people around him, the feeling has always been that while he has gotten away with this could catch up with him at any time. I know in 2017, when Steve Bannon first met Jeffrey Epstein, the first thing Steve Bannon said to Jeffrey Epstein was, "You were the only person I was afraid of during the 2016 campaign."
I mean, Donald Trump, look, his history is what he did to E. Jean Carroll, and not just defaming her, but what he did to her in the first place. About 22 women who've accused him of similar sort of lascivious predilections. I'll just put it that way. He's talked about musing about maybe pardoning Diddy. Which is weird. He seems to think that he was somehow maybe wrongly accused. He seems to have a proclivity for people like that. So do you believe, as a journalist, having done a lot of biographical work on him, that he's done things with Jeffrey Epstein that, if it came out, would even horrify MAGA people?
Well, I'm not sure what would horrify MAGA people. Um, and the only, I mean, what I specifically know is that Epstein had a series of photographs of Trump. They were in his safe. He would go to the safe. He would bring them out, and he treating them almost like playing cards. This was an amusing thing. Here were these dozen photographs with Trump, with some of the Epstein women, girls under, of indeterminate age, um, um, uh, but not your mother's age, so to speak. And I specifically remember three of them. There two in which some of these girls are sitting on Trump's lap and they are topless. And then another one in which Trump has a stain on the front of his pants, and the girls are pointing. Maybe three or four girls are pointing at this and laughing. Um, and I assume those, or it would be a reasonable assumption that those photographs were in Epstein's safe when the FBI raided Epstein's house after his arrest in 2019. Where are they now? I don't know.
A lot of folks, on in these internet streets have noted Bill Barr's father's connection to Jeffrey Epstein. They were associated with the same school, the school Jeffrey Epstein was a teacher at. And just there's been a lot of questions about Jeffrey Epstein's death. Do you have those questions?
Well, I know those questions. I don't have an answer to those questions. I mean, it seems to me that it is almost impossible to believe that Epstein could have killed himself in the way he would have had to, as they say, he did kill himself, that he broke his own neck. I find that ludicrous. On the other hand, the idea, if there was some kind of conspiracy or cover up, that at least a half a dozen assistant U.S. attorneys and as many FBI agents, that they would all keep quiet, which they would have to do, that also seems ludicrous. So the scenario for killing himself seems ludicrous. The scenario for someone murdering him also seems ridiculous.
Would you expect his co-conspirator, who's in prison now, to ever talk? Do you think she'd ever talk to you? Because everyone talks to you.
Well, the Ghislaine thing is, I think, for my money, I think Ghislaine doesn't know all that much. The
Right.
truth is that Ghislaine was out of the picture by 2004. As soon as his troubles began, um, I think I think that was, that was. I mean, she got out of there.
Yeah.
So
Let's.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Let's talk about the South Africans. Donald Trump seems to be surrounded by these South Africans: Jeffrey Sachs, Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel, who has incredible power. Peter Thiel is the most probably underwritten about of the three, in that his company Palantir may soon have the power to surveil every American. What is Donald Trump's affinity to these South Africans, and do you think he really does believe this white genocide nonsense?
Well, I think his affinity, I mean, Donald Trump's affinity to anything is pretty problematic. He has no affinity to anything but himself and the attention he receives, and I mean, possibly, and the money he might make, and the affinity that he does have for these guys is a transactional, there's money to be made here affinity. At some point during the campaign, he was tired of doing these endless fundraisers, as all candidates and politicians have to do, and he said to a group of aides, why are we doing this? I don't have to do this anymore. I can get all the money I need from the crypto guys. So I think I think that's his relationship with these people. He suddenly sees them as a free source of money. Matter of fact, he has himself gotten into the crypto business, So that's the connection here. South Africa, yeah, I mean, people tell him things about that, and and he's perfectly willing to, apparently willing to agree to some preposterous ideas. But again, how deep are those ideas? Surface, like all ideas, surface things.
Yeah. You talked about the crypto thing and the money. This man is enriching himself. He and his family, his two adult sons and himself. No president has ever done anything even close to this. He is allegedly got about $3 billion in the bank so far. He was never a billionaire, really, in real life before he was president. Um, why do you suppose so many Republicans, journalists, everyone tolerates this self-enrichment by an American president? And
Well,
how far do you
I
think he'll
mean, that
go?
I think that's just the tip of the iceberg of what's being tolerated here. I mean, but the truth is, particularly people in the Republican Party and the Republican leadership, is that they don't see any workaround to Donald Trump. Donald Trump controls the party. They are out of business, out of jobs, out of power, out of influence without Donald Trump. Therefore, therefore, it would require each of them to take a very lonely moral stand, not something all that popular in politics.
And how does this end? Because at some point, everything ends. This cult cannot, remain alive forever. Donald Trump will not remain alive forever. Eventually, this MAGA tyranny will pass. What happens to these Republicans when that's over? Do they just go back to pretending they're normal Reagan Republicans?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it will be confused. It will be a difficult situation. And Donald Trump is not replaceable. No one is going to come along and be the next Donald Trump. Donald Trump is utterly unique. He's not like anyone you know or I know or anybody we know knows. And when he passes from this veil of tears, that will be an empty space. I think the Republicans will go into a really dramatic and interesting tailspin. Um, and So what they become, I don't know. I mean, they may just I mean, the whole MAGA movement basically doesn't know what it will be. I mean, Donald Trump, again, absolutely unique. Now, how long can he go on for is the other question.
Well, that is the question because, for one thing, they're deporting their allies, the relatives of the Cuban Americans, Venezuelans, Haitian Americans, those who tended to lean toward the Republican Party. They're eviscerating them. They're devastating their own base with these tariffs, ruining them in many cases by cutting Medicaid. So Donald Trump is running as if he's never leaving office, and it doesn't matter if he destroys all of his supporters. So how long can this go on if
Well,
if even his own people are getting hurt?
yeah, I think I can play this out. He will. I mean, Donald Trump, among his other attributes, it's important to remember he's self-destructive, and that's a complicated thing because the self-destructive element is one of the things that makes him so compelling. The train wreck, the train is going and it's going toward the wall. Why do we all watch this? Because we can't believe what he's doing. We can't believe that it's absent any apparent a logic or even benefit to him. So he will lose. I mean, the midterm election will go poorly for him. There will be a Democratic Congress at the very least. It will begin to investigate, possibly even impeach him again, and he will be the victim, a role which he plays very well, and actually a role that he likes. So it won't be bad for him. He will be the Donald Trump, the martyr again. Now the complication here is that he can't run again, no matter what Steve Bannon says or whatever. He's not going to run again, which means there will be another Republican in his stead. Now, that's a problem for Donald Trump, much greater problem than being investigated and being impeached. Because if another Republican becomes the president of the United States, that just means a diminished role for Donald Trump, which he could never tolerate. So he will undermine whoever is the Republican candidate. The Democrats, therefore, will win in 2028. Donald Trump will return to Mar-a-Lago, still the king of the Republican Party, and we will go through the same Mar-a-Lago rigmarole that we went through last time. One of the things about Donald Trump, he just does again what he did before.
It's exhausting. We appreciate you following it, Michael Wolff, so that we don't have to follow all the minutiae because you're doing it for us. Michael Wolff, thank you very much. Much appreciate your time.
Anytime.
Okay.